didn't see you there. Just about to get started with our geometry lesson. Today we're going to be completing the square to get a circle's equation. Print out the PowerPoint, work the problems with me. Now let's get started.
It's Virtual Math with Mr. Ferrara.
Hey, what's up everybody? Today we're going to be finishing up the circle chapter by completing the square in order to get a circle's equation. You did completing the square back when you were in Algebra 1, and I'll be giving you some pointers and some tips on how to complete the square easily for these problems. Just a reminder that the equation for a circle, when centered at h comma k and has a radius of r, is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. That's the standard form for an equation of a circle. All right, so we're going to jump into a couple examples where we're completing the square. We'll do 3 together and then you'll try one on your own. Now, completing the square is where we add a value to our equation, which then allows us to factor part of that equation. It'll make more sense as we look at a couple problems. Now I see this has x squared plus 24x plus y squared plus 10y plus 160 equals 0. That is right now a whole mess, and it doesn't look anything like the equation of a circle. We need to group our x's and group our y's and get any extra numbers to the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to group my x's first. X squared plus 24x. And I'm going to put that in parentheses and leave some space because I need to add something so that will factor. Plus y squared plus 10y. Again, I'm going to leave some space because I need to add something so that one factors. And that equals, I'm going to bring this 160 to the other side, which means I have to subtract it to the other side. Well, now it's getting a little bit closer to the circle equation. I have an x squared, I have a 24x. I need to add something because right now this doesn't factor to give me x minus h squared. Now 24x, divide that number by 2. Whatever has the variable, you're going to divide it by 2 and then square it. That's completing the square. Dividing by 2, then squaring it. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 12 squared is 144. If I add 144 to one side of my equation, I need to add 144 to the other side of the equation. Now I need to do that same process for the y section. 10y divided by 2 is 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is a positive 25. And if I add 25 to one side, I add 25 to the other. Well, now I just got to clean this up. And here's the whole reason why we did this. X squared plus 24x plus 144 is factorable. You can break that into two things that multiply together to give us this equation. What number times itself is 144? And what number added to itself is 24? Well, that's a 12. So this is x plus 12 squared. 12 times 12 is 144. 12 plus 12 is 24. Plus, what times what is 25, but what plus what is 10? Well, the answer to that is a positive 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 plus 5 is 10. So that's squared. And that equals negative 160 plus 144 plus 25. When you add those up, you get the answer of 9. Well, that is the equation of a circle. That's the equation. Now let's just tell what the center and the radius is. The center would be at negative 12, negative 5, since in the circle formula it's a minus sign, so it's always the opposite. And the radius would be the square root of 9, so the radius is 3. So if you needed the equation, that's right here. And if you needed the facts about the circle, those are right below it. Let's take a look at a second example and see how we do. x squared plus 26x plus y squared plus 28y plus 364 equals 0. Same setup as the last one. I'm going to regroup my x's. I'm going to group my y's. I'm going to throw any other extra numbers to the other side of the equal sign. X squared plus 26x, that's missing its whole number part of it. Y squared plus 28y, again, missing that whole number part. And this 364, let's get it to the other side. So we're going to make it a negative 364. Now, 26 divided by 2 is 13. 13 squared is 169. If I add 169 to one side, I'm going to add 169 to the other. 28 divided by 2 is 14. 14 squared is 196. So I'm going to add 196 to the other side. So the reason we did that is these are now factorable. X squared plus 26x plus 169 can be factored. What number times itself is 169 and what number added to itself is 26? Well, that's x plus 13 squared plus what number times itself is 196 and what number added to itself is 28? Well, that number is 14 squared. Now I add negative 364 plus 169 plus 196. When these numbers, these three get added up, that gives me a nice number of 1. Well, this now is the equation for the circle. X plus 13 squared plus y plus 14 squared equals 1. Let's get the facts about it. The center would be at negative 13, negative 14, and the radius is whatever the square root of 1 is, which is also 1. So here's the factual information about that circle. Here's the equation for that circle. All right, one more together, and then you can try one on your own. Negative 6x plus x squared equals 97 plus 10y minus y squared. Well, this is a little bit messier than the last two. I'm going to get all the x's and y's on one side. I'm going to get the number on the other. The x's are already on one side. X squared minus 6x. I'm missing something. I'm going to bring this y squared over, so he's going to become a positive y squared. I'm going to bring this 10y over to the other side, so he becomes a minus 10y. And he's missing something. And that 97 is going to stay put where it's at because it's on the correct side. Well, let's divide negative 6 by 2. And negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And negative 3 squared is positive 9. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. And negative 5 squared is positive 25. If I add a 9 to one side, I add the 9 to the other. If I add the 25 to one side, I add the 25 to the other. Now let's clean this up. X squared minus 6x plus 9. That means it's x minus 3 squared this time. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. This equation needs to be broken down into y minus 5. Because negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25, and negative 5 plus negative 5 is negative 10. I'll give you a little hint. When you divide the y or the x by 2, that's the number that's going to be plugged into the equation. Negative 10 divided by 2, negative 5. Negative 6 divided by 2, negative 3. Those are the ones in the equation. Equals 97 plus 9 plus 25 is 131. Now I have the equation of my circle done. If I wanted the information for it, the center is at 3, 5, and the radius would be the square root of 131. Done, finished. Why don't you take a pause right here, try the next problem on your own, and see how you do. All right, hopefully you had a couple seconds to work on this problem. Hopefully you got the center and the radius. Hopefully you got the equation for the circle. Well, I noticed that the x's and y's are already grouped on one side. So it's x squared minus 6x and something else plus y squared minus 32y and something else equals negative 264. I need to complete the square for both the x and the y. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is a positive 9. Negative 32 divided by 2 is negative 16. Negative 16 squared is 256. If I add 9 to one side, I add it to the other, and I also have to add 256 to the other side. Now let's just clean it up. This broken down is x minus 3 times another x minus 3, so it's x minus 3 squared. This one was y minus 16 squared. And this math on the other side, negative 264 plus 9 plus 256, comes out to be 1. Well, there's the equation for the circle. Let's write the center. That would be 3 comma 16. And the radius would be whatever the square root of 1 is, which is also 1. There's the answer to example 4. Hopefully you did all right with these. If you have any questions on today's assignment, please feel free to Schoology message me, email me, call the Google helpline, or ask your questions during our next live conference. Till next time, bye.